Hello and welcome to the I Am No Guru channel. I am Paul, and in this episode we are going to look at how to better understand the Six Sigma framework through the use of standard deviation, the bell curve, and some application theory. But before I begin, please note, like 8% of the male population worldwide, I am colorblind, so I only use colors that I can see on my charts. In the background of the disclaimer, you can see how easy it is to do an online color blindness test. Give it a try. You'll see I'm a strong dude. So by now, you are probably wondering what exactly is sigma. Well, aside from being a Greek letter, it is a symbol for standard deviation, and it refers to standard deviation. Standard deviation is actually the square root of variance. So if you look at the bell curve, like you can see in the background from the Investopedia article, if you look in the bell curve, also known as normal distribution or Gaussian distribution, you will see it used in physics, biology, hydrology, population estimates, wildlife estimates, as well as in education for grading students. In finance, for example, if you've heard of the Black-Scholes model for options, well, it's a part of the model. So Carl Friedrich Gauss is the guy who's credited for discovering the normal distribution curve. And he discovered it in around the 1820s. And it is not a new concept. It's been around for a long while. To begin, first we find an average that we can work with. I like using the 9-period average, exponential moving average. It shows me what's been going on in the last 2 weeks of the market, or the last 10 periods, or however you want to look at it. Then standard deviation. Fortunately for us, standard deviation is calculated by the platform that we're using. This makes life so much easier for us. It just speeds up the whole process and gives us a chance to be able to look at things like this outside of the box, in a sense. So here's how the distribution of the data works. When you look at the data, it's all around the mean. This is the mean, which is the average, the exponential moving average in my case. And all the data sets or the price points that fall on this side of the average is the 1 sigma zone, so to speak. And that represents 34.1% of the data that comes in. Same thing happens on the negative side, where it's negative 1 sigma, then that means 34.1% of the data falls on that side, giving you a total of approximately 68.2%. Same can be said for negative 2 sigma, which is 13.6%, and positive 2 sigma zone, that's 13.6%. Together they make 27.2%. So combined with 1 sigma and 2 sigma will give you a total of 95.4 or 95.5%. And then when you add the 3 sigma component to it, you're looking at another 2.1% on the negative 3 and another 2.1% on the positive 3. So that brings you for up to a total of 99.6 to 99.7% of all the data, of all the price points. So how does this help us? Well, if we know that the prices are going to fall within 1 sigma most of the time, and we're seeing that the chart is showing us that it's in a 2 sigma zone, then there's a very good chance that we may be looking at the price either increasing or decreasing depending on what side of the bell curve we're on. So let's take a look at what it looks like on its side. There we go. Now this is a Tesla chart. It's the daily chart for Tesla, and it shows very nicely the zones. So we have the mean right here, and then we have 1 standard deviation right here. It's almost lined right up with the chart. And then we have 1 standard deviation here. This one's a positive. This is 2 standard deviations right here. This is -2. This is a -2 standard deviation right here. And of course you got your number 3 negative and 3 positive. And then of course on the outside I have the negative and positive 6 sigma. So how can we use it? That's a good question. Well, if we know a little bit about Bollinger Bands, we know that when you hit the upper standard deviation lines, and then that indicates to us that it's overbought on Bollinger. And the same principle applies to this. When you hit 2 standard deviations, you're overbought. And of course, if it's the other way, if you're hit -2 sigma, then you're oversold. And of course, I use sigma and standard deviation interchangeably. It can be used interchangeably as well when you're talking about it. So that gives you a little bit of idea right there. So you will know if you're up, if you get a morning rush, say, and you're way up into this zone, you know you are overbought. Same thing on the other side. Okay, here's a different chart to look at. This one is MOMO, M-O-M-O, and its price before the 9:30 bell was right in here at approximately 679 is what it closed at right here. And then there was a big rush on it, and it rose and it rose up, and then it kind of just petered out, and it just kind of sat at that level. And what you can see here, this is a good example, is that it didn't come back down to the mean. The mean, or the average, came up to it. So you can see also by reading this, your volatility, if you look on the outer edge, your volatility was open right up until around this point. At this point, your volatility changed and everything started to close up. And that's when you started getting really close to the mean average. Now, if you take a look, you can see that right at this point was the highest point for the volatility. But if you take a look on, say, the daily for this, you'll see that there's a big outbreak here, and part of it was today. So this was what we looked at under the microscope. It's still opening up the jaws, the volatility. The price run's probably still running upward. It's in almost 3 standard deviation at this point, and it'll do a similar thing where it'll die down and track over. When it dies down, that's your mean reversion taking place. It's going back to its central point, and not necessarily the price before you began, but it could be a price that's higher but sitting on the average. So I hope you enjoyed the video today, and I hope you remember to like and subscribe. And till next time, have a good one.